Townsend, and this is a forward research report. I'm calling this research report Foodless Days. There was a book I read last year, and it was written by Richard Heinberg and David Fridley. Our Renewable Future, Laying the Path for 100% Clean Energy. And when you combine that with Lester R. Brown's book, Empty Plates, and his view of geopolitics of food, as well as the energy and mineral depletion rate that was first widely recognized by the Club of Rome, and the great work of J.W. Forrester and Danella and Dennis Meadows and that team of researchers using system dynamics, where you have non-intuitive feedback loops. As someone who's trained as an engineer, specifically in software engineering, the value of what used to be called, I had a grand uncle who was in operations research during the Second World War. He had a physics degree from Purdue University in West Lafayette, Indiana, when that was a small institution, about the tenth of the size that it is today. Boys, young men who are considered good at math, but not necessarily good at linguistics, languages, law, or even people skills, were encouraged to go to places like Purdue and study agriculture and math-based majors like physics and mechanical engineering, chemical engineering. So as we look to the future, the case that's made out by Heinberg and Fridley in their book, Our Renewable Future, and I have many quotes from the books highlighted, is that the transition will not be a smooth one to renewable energy. It's going to be a drastic, profound, dramatic change. I've been thinking about what kind of adjectives to use to describe it. Millions, billions of people are going to have to do things that they don't like or want to do. Millions of people are going to have to start bending down and squatting and weeding gardens. They're hoeing their gardens, composting, riding their bicycles in the rain to get to school or work, walking through the snow up to their ankles or knees in some parts of the world, abandoning their homes and moving. And more people are going to be get to the point where you may have more than 2 billion, 3 billion people that are completely skipping eating at least one day a week for their family budget and to conserve their food, as over 12 million hectares, which is 2.2 acres if you're an American, is lost every year to many different causes: urban sprawl, paving it for parking lots for commercial buildings, desertification, groundwater aquifers being depleted. The soil just is gone because they've been farming it intensively for too long, and it no longer can yield crops and is abandoned. So people are going to have to replace machinery and with muscle labor. I had a video where I read the speech of Admiral Hyman Rickover, and he was talking about why in Asia, back in the 1950s when he made the speech, that they didn't even use animals in Asia for farming, like oxen, um, to in their farms, because the oxen and the horse or draft horses would have used too much energy, too many calories, and they needed to get every calorie out of the ground. And the most efficient way to farm is just with human muscle power. Um, if you were to have gone to University of Paris 300 years ago, it would have been common um, or required, if you were there, let's say your ambition was to be a lawyer, which was the non-clerical religious occupation that would be why you were at the university studying, as they didn't have engineering and many of the majors like today, like women's studies or African American studies. They didn't have those kind of things, so you would have been studying Hebrew, Greek, Aramaic language of the scriptures, and translating works from Greek, like the Iliad. And if you were to get together years later in your 30s, because college was really what we call middle school, high school today, but they took the difficulty of classes of what you take at a university today, or even more difficult than what most students take, unless they are a STEM major, then science, technology, engineering, and math. If they weren't taking those type of majors that have more rigorous requirements, you'd have to, translate whole books from Greek, into French or into Latin, and back and forth, while you were fasting, and that you probably fasted at least a half a day a week, sometimes more than a day a week, as the Roman Catholic Church supervised and administered most of the universities in Europe. And that's what's happening around the world, as you have hundreds of millions of people rising out of poverty, which means you can't get access to food, clothing, shelter, or other needs because your income is too low, to the working class, which today this is a subjective number, but in today's dollars and purchasing power of around 15,000 US dollars for maybe a family of 3 or 4 gets you out of poverty in most countries. And when, let's say, a Chinese man does make it as a factory foreman in China and is earning, let's say, 20,000 equivalent dollars a year in purchasing power parity in China, he starts to buy pork chops and eggs and cheese and some processed food to take home to his family to feed his wife and child, so that their diets change. They move up the energy level, where the food, instead of just eating rice, when you eat eggs mixed in with the rice, that it might take 3 calories or 5 calories, of the equivalent of rice to be fed to the chicken to make the egg. And then if you go up to beef, it might be 40 or 80 calories have to be fed, in soybeans and grains to a cow, so that it's much less efficient, requires much great increases in the energy to go to meat, so as you have a working class or even a middle class increasing by millions in countries like India and China. They're consuming more energy calories in their food, and at the same time you have countries like the Central African Republic, Nicaragua, Haiti in the Caribbean, Bangladesh in Asia, that have declining caloric intake and declining standards of living. So while you might want to look on the positive side at somewhere like China, where you see massive apartment complexes of people living what to the West would we call a working class lifestyle, or maybe they're going to movie theaters and they can buy a scooter um, to that uses gasoline, so they can go 40 miles an hour through this across the city, weaving through traffic. Uh, they have that upgrade in lifestyle, working very hard for that standard of living, of owning a scooter and being able to have chicken mixed in with their rice and cheese and yogurt and other higher processed foods. Um, in Haiti, Nicaragua, Bangladesh, things are worse than ever. So there's going to be probably at least 2 to 3 billion people that are going to be, whether it's through their religion indirectly or on their own, are going to start to have fasting days if they don't already have them. And we're going to see an exponential increase in the amount of foodless days. And the hierarchies tend to solidify, calcify between the different economic groups. Like you have the multi-billionaires at the very pinnacle, and maybe only a few thousand of those families. And then you go down at the bottom of the pyramid, where you have people that are literally dying of hunger. And the gradations between the classes tend to increase with hunger. As people that are in not in the bottom, but they at least have one class of people below them, they want to make that difference between classes as sharp and distinct, vibrant as possible, saying, I'm of this social class, I'm of the middle class, not the working class. I'm a professor, I'm an accountant and a middle manager at a big accounting firm. I'm above you, and then the working class truck driver is above the person that has to forage for cans and things to recycle to sell to a recycling company. That's all I have. I would recommend that you check out that book I recommended, and have a great day.